Thank you for joining us on today's edition of Naples Daily Newsmakers. We're getting close to the end of the year now, and we take a look back at what happened in 2015 and look ahead a bit to 2016. Later on in today's program, you'll hear from Bill Barker, the publisher here at the Naples Daily News, and our editor, Manny Garcia. But now joining me here on the set to take a look back and a look ahead is Brent Batten, our local columnist here at the Naples Daily News. Brent, thanks for taking time.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
So one of the big things that we weighed in on as an important issue for 2015, as far as our editorial board goes, was growth and environmental protection. And I think growth certainly took off a lot faster than we even expected back then. What were some of your thoughts about what happened in 2015?
Well, Alan, in the spirit of the season, the growth issue to me evokes the spirit of Christmas past and Christmas future. I think what we saw this year reminded me a lot of what happened back in the early 2000s in terms of a certain cycle beginning to take shape. And it starts with home values rising, and it goes from there and leads to several consequences, some of which are great, some of which are not so great. And I think that we need in the future, as we go forward in 2016, to be aware perhaps of some lessons learned in those years and try to capitalize and prevent what had happened. What essentially happens is housing prices start to rise, then they rise exponentially. There's demand driving that. There's an investment opportunity that people see there, and then they want to invest, and then that causes the prices to rise even more. People have home values now that they have homes that are worth more on paper probably than they really are. That allows some equity borrowing that perhaps lets people get overextended, and it just starts off a cycle. And a lot of things tie into this cycle, including your economic diversity. If you've got an economy that's based on construction and is doing well on construction, you seem to lose the focus of trying to diversify your economy, and you're content to just allow that construction industry to take off. And then at some point, as we saw in the past, this bubble is prone to crash, at which point your construction industry isn't working well, you don't have the jobs now, you let up on economic diversification, so now you don't have other types of jobs to fall back on like you might have wished you had. People's equity is gone, they're overextended borrowing, and this is where the negative consequences start to fall in. So this happened before, just a few years ago. It had happened to a lesser extent in years before that. And I think our elected leaders, our bankers, our business leaders are going to have to take all their community or all their collective wisdom and try to come up with a plan. And it's going to be multifaceted, and it might tie into some of the other things we talk about here, but they have to come up with a plan to not allow that to happen again. So it's that's where the Christmas future comes in, is where is this going to lead us this time? We know where it's led us in the past.
Yeah, I think in terms of what happened back 10 years or so ago, one of the other things that you sort of hinted on there deals with the touch on environmental issues for us, which also was something we saw back then. I mean, there were clashes in terms of panther deaths in this past year. We saw bears moving into neighborhoods. We saw a lot of environmental issues. The water, do we have enough water for all of this growth? All of those issues are sort of coming back up again. So clearly that was a big thing for us. I think looking back into our crystal ball, one of the things that didn't really pop up into that crystal ball was affordable housing and workforce housing. We've had a lot of growth, but is it really tailored to the workforce?
It's not, and as that recession hit in 2008, 2009, just before that, we had the same discussions going on about affordable housing, the need to augment it and to add to it, to bring home prices down, not just for folks that might be classified as poor, but folks that might be even classified as middle class, having a hard time finding a place to live. The recession hit. There's a glut of houses on the market, and everybody forgets about the problem. And for those lucky few that were able to capitalize, they might have been able to buy in and find something. But now we're seeing a repeat of what we saw before, where affordable housing was a big deal in 2006, 2007, not so much afterwards. So we have to look back to those days and not lose our focus and follow through with these efforts. I know the county is making some efforts to reinstate some of its incentive programs. A big thing about affordable housing is going to tie into the environment. Once again, how many units do we allow on land? There's not a lot of land left to build on that's not already in some form of either spoken for future development rights or ecologically sensitive. So where are we going to put these affordable housing units? How many are we going to put in a given area, and what's the effect going to be on the environment? Every time we have this debate about the environment, it probably gets a little more critical every time because there's less and less environment to save and more pressure, as you said, driving bears into neighborhoods or driving panthers onto roads or sucking up water. Every time you go through it, you're going through it with a bigger population base to start from, which creates greater consequences down the road.
One of the things you put on the table there was economic diversification, and that was also one of the issues that we as an editorial board said it needed to be watched in 2015. One of the things that the county's doing is taking a look at not only affordable housing, but also redoing 4 of its growth plans out on the eastern side of the county. And I think the idea there is that there's going to be some planning for economic diversification out in pockets out in that area of the county, so that we're not in a continuing situation where the workforce is all driving in to coastal Naples to work. How do you think we did in 2015 in terms of diversifying our economy here?
We can do better. I think we started to see some signs at the end of the year of the county's incentives finally starting to draw some interest and draw some people in. We saw a fairly big company commit to Collier County just a week or two ago with a few hundred jobs in the food processing industry. Hey, that's a start. But what we really want, what we really need, we know is probably technological type jobs, and I think healthcare is a great field for Collier County. We're going to have an older population. We're going to have a relatively affluent population. I think we need to find jobs and create opportunities for jobs in health research, healthcare. These are tend to be good paying jobs that will always be in demand. People are always going to want healthcare, and technology is always going to be advancing. So this is just one area that I can see where we need to try to capitalize. The county's incentive efforts, frankly, have been slow to develop, in my opinion, but we are starting to see some bear some fruit now, so hopefully that'll continue into 2016.
You mentioned the word health there, and that was one of the other issues that we keyed up as a key one for 2015 to see that move forward. Honestly, when we started the new year, I didn't think that the blue zones was going to be that controversial here, but it sure did not play out that way, did it?
Collier County does not take well to being told by the government what to do, and I don't know the blue zone is telling anybody what to do, but it can be perceived that way. It has been perceived that way in some quarters, and some of their dictums, if you read their literature, do entail government mandates, but they're not certainly mandatory. No community has to take those up. But I think the key for blue zones is going to be to make the healthy choice the right choice and not make it appear as it's any sort of government mandate, because government mandates will fail in Collier County. You can't change a lifetime of unhealthy habits aren't going to change overnight, so blue zones is in for a long struggle, but if they can just keep making the healthy choice the right choice, I think they'll do just fine.
One of the other things that came up in terms of creating a healthier environment here was bicycle safety and so forth, and Kathleen Pasadomo had introduced a bill which got fairly far along in the last session, and she's going to turn around and try to bring that home again. But I think that that's another step that the community took in 2015 between the City of Naples looking at trying to make Central Avenue more friendly to cyclists and just generally trying to make the roads safer to cyclists. So it wasn't just a blue zone year for health issues, there were some other issues too. One of the other things that we teed up for 2015 was consolidation moving forward in the fire districts, and there again I think we looked ahead and saw an opportunity for that to move ahead. There again a lot of controversy in 2015.
Fire districts are been referred to often as fiefdoms, and I don't think that's too far from accurate. So anytime you're looking at changing these things, it's going to be controversial. Folks with power aren't going to want to necessarily cede that power. Folks with a certain way of doing things aren't going to want to cede their way of doing things, but the momentum is there. This is a big thing, and when momentum's moving in a certain direction, I don't think it's going to be easily reversed. I think the sheriff's new system coming on first of the year to send the closest unit to pretty much all fire and rescue type emergencies is going to go a long way to erasing political boundaries. I don't think that'll take long for people to get used to that and to accept that and embrace that. And once that's taken care of, I think these political boundaries will start to disappear. There's always going to be this controversy over which system is best at providing ALS care, and there's a couple of different approaches. I would love to see each approach tried for a period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then examine the data and see which system works best and make a decision based on that. The folks involved aren't necessarily eager, it seems right now, to take that data-driven approach, but I think it can be done and probably needs to be done.
I think that is the big thing that's missing in the equation right now. We've got a lot of back and forth, and what is the best way for ambulance service and firefighters to be deployed here in Collier County, and I think that is really going to be a difficult decision to navigate through and do the right thing without data. And at this point, it doesn't seem like anybody's got the data that they need in terms of developing it.
I'm optimistic that the federal government's developing some new data systems that they're sort of in their infancy, but perhaps they'll mature to the point where we can actually apply them locally and get some answers, good answers to those types of questions.
So those are some of the big issues that we talked about. We're going to be front and foremost in 2015. We've got other issues that we're going to address here at the Naples Daily News. If you go to naplesnews.com over the coming days, and keep an eye out on how our editorial board's vision was for 2015 and what our plans are for 2016. Next up, we'll hear from Bill Barker and Manny Garcia. A year ago, we sat here on the set of Newsmakers and spoke with Bill Barker, the publisher here at the Naples Daily News, and Manny Garcia, the editor here at the Naples Daily News, and they talked a little bit about what you could expect from us here at the Daily News in 2015. Now we take a look back and a look ahead, and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again on Newsmakers. Manny, what was sort of the big issue and the big push forward as far as the newsroom was concerned in 2015?
For us, it continues to be local, owning the big breaking story and being involved in a big way, explaining, for example, the Seavers case, which is big, but also continuing to be the voice for the voiceless, and through some of the work that we've done from our investigative group and just beat reporting. So it's really continued to dovetail and use the momentum from 2015 on our investigative front to go into 2016. We've got a pipeline of very strong projects coming up that are local. We're going to focus even more on local, but also we have a couple of statewide projects that will really impact our market, so we're excited about that.
And in 2016, what's big on the horizon as far as the newsroom's coverage goes?
It's going to be that just investigative, but also what we have to focus on is politics. We have a big race, not just in Bonita, but also in the city of Naples, as we know, and in the trickle-down effect or trickle-forward, for example, to the state legislative, Senate, and then even as high up as the presidential election. It really plays to our audience because you also have, this is an area where you've got a lot of fundraising going on, and you've got candidates from presidential candidates who come in here to state Senate for other positions. So really it's being able to bring that to bear, the strength of, hey, we want to document exactly what's going on politically in our region.
And Bill, as far as 2015 went, what were some of the big things that you think should be takeaways for the Daily News in 2015?
Well, you know, Alan, to me, it comes down to the fact that we kind of kept our commitment. We invested more in journalism here. I think we took on some, tough issues, but I think too that was the first time we've had an advisory board, particularly on the editorial side of our business, that expanded the voice. That's one of the things that was very important to us. We've worked real hard in doing what we said about being more transparent, opening our community room to have more town halls. It's very important to have an informed society, and I think as a newspaper and as a local media company, we have to give access to all voices in these issues. So the things I've been most proud of is where we've expanded upon our coverage, where we have taken issues and gave more sides to that story. And I think that's the thing we got to continue to focus on in 2016. I think it's appropriate to thank those advisors. I think it's appropriate to tell the community if you don't feel like that there's things that we're covering they need to get active in that and get in contact with you or Manny or myself and make sure we are representing this market as holistically as we possibly can.
Can you talk a little bit about the diversification of the folks that were selected for the advisory board?
Yeah, we wanted, average readers from, Harold Weeks, who represents the NAACP. We've got business leaders there. We've got environmental leaders there. We've got civic leaders there, businesses represented, and we've even got a 22-year-old intern that's going to University of Florida represented on that board, so we got the younger voice. And as we look at affordability, it covers all ranges there. We look at health and well-being, we've got that covered real well, and education, such a major part, so we got educators involved, and politicians that are not actively in politics now, but have a history there as well.
And this wasn't just Collier County based, right? I mean, we did sort of reach into South Lake County as
we
well.
do. We've got someone from Estero represented there, and we want to represent the region, and we're going to continue to develop that. We'll expand upon that in 2016.
Stay with us. We'll be back momentarily with more from Bill Barker, the publisher here at the Naples Daily News, and Manny Garcia, editor of the Naples Daily News. You can keep up with our coverage here at naplesnews.com, on your apps, and with your daily news delivered to your driveway. Stay with us. We're back now on Naples Daily Newsmakers with publisher Bill Barker and editor Manny Garcia of the Naples Daily News. Gentlemen, thank you again for taking time out of your busy days here to join us.
Thank you, Al.
Bill, obviously we're a plugged-in news source here in Southwest Florida, but also we're a key business here in the area, and so we keep a good eye on economic diversification and development here. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how you think 2015 went for the economy here in Southwest Florida?
I think overall the economy has been very healthy. From a tourism point of view, you've seen the data, we've reported on it, we've had great numbers. Just from retail spend has been strong this year. As a newspaper and a business, a media company, we're very involved in the business activities. Certainly as our services support growth of business, local businesses are such a solid, important foundation to any healthy community. And I think our business community is healthy, and it's an area that we want to continue to work with and support. I think the Chamber's had a solid year through their opportunity in Naples. We've seen great collaboration among organizations here in town, from the Wine Festival getting together with, the Education Foundation, Champions for Learning, United Way, that Opportunities Naples group, the Community Foundation, the collaboration of people coming together to look at this impact study and how we have collective impact and how we manage priorities that then flow through to education, to the overall economic development community, that health and well-being. None of these things happen in a silo. They all have to work collaboratively and come together and for the greater good of our community. And I think we saw progress in 2015. I think that groundwork has been laid and the foundation for great progress to continue to be made in 2016. And I think that should and will be, from an editorial point of view, to help bring voices to the table. For us, it's very important that people get involved. The worst thing you can have is an uninvolved community. And this community is just growing up, and there are going to be, conflicts and challenges among what people's interests are and how they think we ought to go. And we want to have as large of a voice in that as we possibly can and get more and more people involved. So.
Bill mentioned some of the nonprofits and foundations, leads to the question as to how does that fit into, or does it fit into plans for news coverage for 2016?
Absolutely, because it goes twofold, Alan. It's also, you've got a lot of nonprofits here who help support a lot of important initiatives, and so it's celebrating those successes and bringing it to light, because in many ways, just from our coverage you've seen, all the students that get to go to colleges or just other abilities to get work that they weren't able to get, and also, but at the same token, is also making sure we've got an ability to cover them properly, and that, for example, whether it's how money is being spent by nonprofits or government agencies, it's all to help. So that's part of what we have to do in that respect. Dovetailing a little bit off of what Bill was talking about, our region and economic and the changes and so forth. One thing I saw in 2015 is we didn't really have a slowdown this year, the normal summer lull. So what that's created for us is really, we had to be full on the entire year. And so what that tells me is that the region continues to grow. And as June Fletcher has written in her stories, the growth and development here continues to grow, and it's not going to slow down. So that's going to affect roads, schools, you name it, across the board. And for me, that's a very healthy sign that we're turning into a very important region. And so as part of it, and what I feel very good about is this is one of the strongest newsrooms I've been involved in. Pound for pound, the level of talent that we have here is really impressive. So I think we're positioned very well to be able to address and cover the continuing change in our community.
I heard a couple of words throughout this conversation here. One is politics and the other education. Those two are going to be important for us to follow in 2016 with the Collier County School Board race in particular. Is that something that you see as a big part of our political coverage for 2016?
Extremely so. As former Massachusetts Speaker Tip O'Neill said, well, the House Speaker, Congressional Speaker said, all politics is local. So of course that's very important for us. So it's going to be our work covering local school board races. We're very fortunate to have, and he's been on our broadcast, Eric Sarkisian, our bureau chief in Tallahassee, a very strong, dogged reporter with a very discerning sense of understanding politics. We're going to bring more to bear resource-wise with reporting on politics locally. So absolutely, you're going to see more of that, and the winners are going to be our readers and viewers.
I know who signs my paycheck, so in the last minute we've got here, Bill, what are some of the key things that you think folks can look forward to seeing in the daily news, on our website, and in our apps in 2016?
Well, first I want to thank our readers for supporting us and stay tuned. I want to encourage them to help us through communicating to us about the things they want to see covered. So I'll make a commitment that we will be out in front on that. But I do believe we play a very important role in helping this community stay organized around its priorities, to give voice to all people in our community, and we need to be held accountable to that. I think you'll see education conversations continue. We're doing a lot of great work in that space. I think the economic development issues from the fire districts coming together and from how we deal with infrastructure and all those things have all got to be covered. And I think health and well-being, continuing to fall in the blue zone, helping give people choice around how to live healthy and make that choice easy. I think that's all important stuff. And so we're just going to be a strong supporter of this community in all ways possible and be very transparent in our coverage and take advantage of these great facilities we have here to invite people in to be part of that.
Bill Barker, Manny Garcia, thank you for joining us today as we turn the page from 2015 to 2016 here on Naples Daily NewsMakers.